Seven on Sundays podcast is intended for mature audiences. Episodes discuss sensitive and fraught topics that many teens and 20-somethings face, but may be triggering. The content may not be suitable for all audience members. Please take caution when listening.
I met a guy in a dating app who lived in a different state, and he bought me a plane ticket to see him. So I was completely out of my home state, away from everyone with like a stranger, essentially. So not good.
Hello and welcome to Seven on Sundays, the podcast about how young adults are navigating sex, relationships, and life today.
We are your hosts, Dr. Chez, Leeby, and Stephanie Boye, and each week we will share our candid conversations with young adults and experts about today's tough topics.
Welcome, listeners. I'm really excited for all of you because I think this is an amazing conversation that we have with Bonnie and Beth. Our original topic for this and what we sort of stuck to is what we compromise for the potential of a connection. And these two young women, both college sophomores, were so insightful and vulnerable with their stories. And typically, Dr. Chez and I will do a wrap up at the end of a podcast, but today there is no wrap up because I think we kind of all laid it right on the table and we really got down to business and we talked about everything. And I feel like we addressed all of the things that came up. And I just want to say thank you so much to Bonnie and Beth for their honesty. And I hope that every young person in college hears this story, sees themselves in it, sees what it is that they're looking for, what brings them joy, what connections they actually want to have realized in their life, and are inspired by this conversation. So let's jump right in with Bonnie and Beth. So, Bonnie, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about this topic.
So this is something that very much resonates with me because I had a time in my life last year. I'm 20 now, but like more last year when I was like 19 that I went through. I was in a very long-term relationship throughout high school, and then once I got to college, that relationship ended, and I went through this not very like positive change in myself where I felt like what I had to do because I was in college and I had never done it before throughout high school was like, oh, now I have to like seek connection where I can. Now I have to have hookups because that is what people are doing. And it was not, it was more of like a dangerous time of my life because I was putting myself in compromising situations just for that chance of a connection and like that validation of a connection. So I don't, not that having a hookup is bad, and like sometimes like I'll still like have a hookup sometimes, but I'm just a lot like safer about it now. And my I guess I've had to like work on like why am I doing this?
Bonnie, can you share, if you're comfortable? This is anonymous. Bonnie is not your name, your real name, but can you share examples of what dangerous situations would be? And I want to let you know that you're not alone in those things, but it would be really helpful to kind of know what you're talking about. What would make it dangerous?
Yeah, like something is if like you're at a party and you've had way more to drink than you should have, and you agree to like go with somebody who's probably a lot more sober than you are. A lot of these encounters were on like through dating apps. So just like people that like I don't know them. They give me an address to their house and they could literally be anybody. This one time, and this is the craziest thing I've done, but I met a guy in a dating app who lived in a different state and he bought me a plane ticket to see him. So I was completely out of my home state, away from everyone with, like, a stranger, essentially. So not good. Not good things.
Bonnie, that is really brave of you to tell us those stories. And I feel very deeply for that situation. And what it makes me think is, that's not safe. You probably knew it at the time. So what was it, do you think, that drove you to make that choice? Because you're a smart girl, you're not any different than a lot of people in your peer group or your culture. So what do you think it was that drove you to make the choice, especially to fly to a different state where you are completely out of your realm?
For sure, and this is definitely something that because you're right, like, at the time, I fully recognized that it was dangerous, and I had people in my life telling me, like, "Hey, this is really unsafe," and I was kinda just like, "Oh, I know, but, like, it's fine." So, I feel like at that time in my life, I was just, like, going through a lot of, like, change in my personal life, and I was, like, heartbroken for the first time at 19, and a lot of these things were almost like validation to
Mhm,
me
mhm,
because, there's so much value like, as a woman, I feel like we just are made to feel like a lot of our worth is based on, like, how attractive a man will find us, and, like, that male validation, like, made me feel just, like, so much better about myself and probably, like, an unhealthy way. So, just, like, having that, like, being in a low place or, like, having low self-esteem, and then seeking out, like, oh, like, if I have, like, a connection with this guy and, like, he really likes me, like, that shows that I'm still worth something.
That is so insightful. That's amazing, Bonnie, that I'm imagining that you were a freshman when this happened, right? Were you a freshman or a sophomore?
I was a freshman.
So that's so insightful. And that is like developmentally at that age, you're kind of solidifying your internal, compass, so to speak, of your worth. And unfortunately, our culture is so externally driven in that way. Steph and I were just talking about this morning about how, appearance for young girls is such a aspirational thing right now that like young people are supposed to look a certain way, and this is the aspiration versus what is your passion for work, or your what drives you, what really excites you inside, versus this external thing. So it's very insightful that you're saying that. And also, I know for me and Steph, makes us sad because this is what, unfortunately, for a lot of girls, especially following heartbreak, it's like, okay, let me get that fixed and feel like I'm okay, feel like somebody externally is going to be interested in me, and then I'll be okay. And I'm sure you can share with us that that's short-lived. That doesn't last the test of time, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I would always find that, like, afterwards I mean, never did it make me feel better, you know? I would just go back to feeling how I was, like, it was not helpful.
I think it's important here to maybe bring up what's happening in the brain when we have someone attracted to us and showing interest, right? Our brains respond to dopamine, and it's like a pleasure seeking and it's validation. When you're feeling good about yourself, everybody wants to feel that way. There's a lot of ways to feel good about ourselves, but as Dr. Chez was saying, validation for young people, young women, I'm going to say young women, seems to really be in how beautiful you are, in how, you perform at this female identity. You're an influencer, you're hot, all that kind of stuff. It's all very superficial, right? So it's almost like a dopamine chase. And it that might sound extreme, but I interviewed this girl who would go on Tinder, and she told me how, and it was very clear once she explained it. And I think maybe this will resonate with you. She said, when a guy would respond to something she posted or there's some sort of interaction, she would feel really excited about it. And it would escalate really quickly, this kind of interaction between the two of them. And very quickly, it became kind of sexual conversation. And then it was like, almost like the expectation was there. Like it started the sexual conversation, but then she knew when they were going to be together, it was a very sexual expectation. So the entire premise of the interaction, if you will, was like his desire to have sex with her and her desire to feel valued. Does that resonate?
Honestly,
Absolutely.
that really
Yeah.
resonates with me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a dopamine hit that we're chasing, right? So it's like there's a quick dopamine hit. And I like if you look at it like sugar, for example, sugar, we saturate everything with sugar today, right? But you can eat fruit, you can do the healthy things, you know? So I think sometimes there's a slow route to the dopamine hit of feeling valued, and that is for who you are inside versus the quick hit sugar fix of grabbing a handful of gummy bears, right? Like it's just that difference. So it's like you have to make a choice, and that's hard. I eat gummy bears all the time. And if I were your age, I would absolutely be buying into, oh, this guy thinks I'm hot because there's so much competition today. Everyone is on Instagram. Everybody's got their ass showing and looks hot and all this kind of stuff. It's really tempting to grab the handful of gummy bears, right? But it's like you recognize that you're not being seen for who you really are when those encounters happen. And like I love what you said because it brings me back to something Dr. Chez said in a previous pod interview that we did. You were seeking connection, but what you were getting was an encounter.
Yeah.
Does that make
Oh,
sense?
There's a big
Mhm.
difference. Yeah.
I think the podcast that you're referencing, I listened to
Mhm.
yesterday, and I did get the word encounter from Dr. Chet. So credit to you because I was like that word is so good. Like that really resonates with it.
It's like
There's a difference.
situationship is really just an encounter. Let's be frickin' honest. Let's
Yeah.
call a
Yeah.
spade a
Totally.
spade.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not real connection. And what's beautiful that we're uncovering in this podcast is that boys too, or males too, are often seeking connection, not just encounters. So it's not just a female thing, it's a human thing that we all actually want meaningful encounters, meaningful connections a lot of times. But society sets us up to kind of think, oh no, an encounter will do the fix. The gummy bears are everywhere and the gummy bears will do it. You know, that'll satisfy. But that satisfies until the next time when you're still stuck with, wait, but I want meaning, I want connection. I think Beth, if you're ready to chime in, go girl.
Yeah. So basically, my freshman year of college, I came into college. I had never really dated anyone before. I had like been with people before, but I was never really seeking a relationship. I was never really seeking it. I just came into college thinking, okay, let's just see what happens. So I got to college and I met this guy. And honestly, he had approached me first. And I wasn't really interested at first. But, we hooked up one time. And after that, it was just like hookup after hookup after hookup. Like all of my friends were just like, what are you doing? And I was just like, well, oh, I just want to. And so the more we started to hook up, the more deeper we got. But we never dated, we never were official. We were just friends who had sex every now and then, friends who kind of went on little dates and we just did things that kind of felt like dating, but it was never, oh, we're dating. So he was always telling me these things that made me feel like there was a connection there. Like he would just always say these things that made me feel like, oh, maybe there's a possibility here. But then his actions outside of us hanging out together or being together did not add up to what he was telling me. Like if we weren't together, he wasn't talking to me. He wasn't doing things for me. He wasn't like asking about how my day was. So it was more of just like these mixed signals of like it was just like what was going on. And it felt like every time we would be together, it was almost like we were, or this is kind of how I felt. I felt like I was being Pavlov. Like our every time we would hang out, it would be so habitual that we would just have sex. And it kind of just almost became like a routine. It's not even like I sometimes I didn't even want to. I just did it because I was like, oh, well, since we're here. So I thought there was a connection. I was in the hopes of maybe it turning into something more. And so I continued to see him and I continued to have sex with him just for it to end up in nothing.
What was the impact of that experience?
Very, very negative. I had went home that summer and I was just like, because after we went home for the summer, we just cut off basically all connection, and I was just like I was literally, like, really depressed, like, that summer. I was just, like, crying every night. I was like, "Why did I do this?" And I was really just starting to, like, pick apart every little thing that had happened, and I was like, "Oh my god," like, it really just all came together, and I was like, "What was that?" Like, it really had a negative impact on me.
So it's like we're seeking these connections and we're doing things that reinforce our unworthiness. Like it's
Mhm,
like we're seeking a connection to feel our worth, to feel validated, to feel seen, to really be known, right?
mhm.
That's what you want. You want someone to know you.
Yeah.
And all of these gummy bears are nothing more than making you actually feel question yourself,
Mhm.
question your value, question your worth. And we're not seeing that. We're making choices. And I say we as culturally, because if I were your age, I'd probably be doing the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
Age is wisdom, but why? Why? Like
It's
you had this
why, yeah.
Bonnie, what was the emotional baggage that you got from your experiences?
I mean, it would definitely make me feel, like, very bad about myself. It made me feel very, like it just and I always say this, but I'm like, when I look back on the things I was doing, I was like, "Wow, like, that felt so, like, out of character for me." Like, that didn't it did not feel like me. It felt like a much more, like, broken, sad version of
Mhm.
me. It definitely like, I can't think of anything from that period that, like, I'm like, "Oh, like, it benefited me in this way," other than the fact that it benefited me to not do it again. Like, I wasn't I didn't gain anything. Like you said, like, I would get that quick hit of, like, "Oh, like, they like me, they think I'm hot," and then it would kind of just it would go away because I would be like, "Well, it's not genuine," like and a lot of those things that they're saying are only because, you're having a sexual experience or, like, a sexual encounter, so, like, obviously, like, a man or anyone, like, you wanna have sex with someone, so you're gonna compliment them and call them sexy and hot, and it's not that they knew me as a person because how
Mhm.
could they possibly know me as a person? We just met. It was just that, like I mean, and maybe they just, like, wanted that connection too, so they would just say things to validate me, and it was very, like, just, like, empty, just, like, an empty feeling.
When you're out of alignment, when you're misaligned with, your true desires and then something that happens or who you really are and then kind of in this compromised place, that does create this dis-ease. That creates this, difficulty and this struggle with, okay, I'm not where I want to be and I am compromising and I'm doing these things and so that's when the next day feels terrible or the next week or the next month or whatever, and it continues, but you're still kind of searching, but you feel terrible. That's when it's the impetus to make a change, which it sounds like you guys both did. But what's always interesting to me is looking back at that expectation, like how many college freshmen, and I'd love to hear from you guys about this, how many college freshmen think, males and females think, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to just kind of randomly hook up and be okay with this, or I'm supposed to be at the beck and call of somebody and be okay with this, or I'm supposed to do this because it will blank, 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 find me my person or whatever. So it's exploring the supposed to is really a value for us because we're in the summer. There's a lot of young people going off to college in the fall. So what was your and it's more unspoken, I think, or did you guys actually speak about it? Like, "Oh, I can't wait. This is gonna be great. I'm gonna, explore my sexuality. I'm gonna explore, relationships and sex and find my person or just have fun?" Or like, can you walk us through that supposed to?
I feel like for me and my friends, it was definitely unspoken, especially at the time, like going into college, my closest friends were in relationships. And so we didn't really talk about that. There wasn't really any expectation externally, but internally, I was like, I feel like for even just for like a lot of freshmen, like, this is where you're really on your own for the first time. You have a lot of freedom, and this is the time to try and experiment and just try new things. And so I think people get a little too ahead of themselves and they just think that this is what they have to do because this is what they hear and see about. And so they're like, oh, let me try this for myself. Like, let me just feel like a part of this. So something that is so normalized in college.
Yeah, it's so normalized. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question, because we know where culture stands. This is what you're supposed to do, right? But I want to ask you to take a minute to think about what is it, each of you, what would have made you happy? Like, speak your truth of what you actually wanted. Because here's the thing, saying, I want someone to think, all of these things, or I'm hot and this guy wants me. That's like so superficial. You want, I believe you want so much more than that. And I want you to articulate it for a very specific reason, because when you say it, you are putting power into yourselves and you are speaking it out into the universe. And that's really woo woo. Don't care, because you two deserve it. You're amazing girls. But I want to know, what do you actually want? And you can, either one of you can start and then the other one.
I'll go. I feel like for me, especially because like this time that I was having hookups was right after a terrible breakup with a guy that I believed was like going to be my life partner, which sounds a little naive to be like, oh, the person that you were dating at 17, whatever. But I like fully believed I was like, no, like this is the person I'm gonna marry. So then when I had that breakup, I feel like I was almost like, and I mean, even still, I'm like always searching for someone that I can like feel that way about them again. And I have this joke with my friends that I feel like very much speaks to it. But like whenever I start talking to a guy, or like a guy will literally just like look at me or like talk to me, or it can be someone that I don't even really know, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like my husband. Like, wait, like my husband just texted me. My husband just looked at me. And it is like, it's like a funny joke to be like, oh my gosh, like I have so many husbands right now. And but I feel like deep down it is because, like, I mean, what I'm looking for is, like, a real, genuine, like, serious, because I feel like everyone maybe not, but, like, it is much more beneficial to have one partner that you truly love and care about and have a strong connection with than it is to have, like, situationships or hookups, like, to have someone that's actually there and, like, betters you as a person, someone that you can grow with. And I feel like through all these, like, random encounters, like, really in the back of my mind, like, that's what I'm, like, searching for almost.
Okay, before Beth responds, I just want to say something because I don't want to forget it. And I think it's important here where you just said that. Bonnie, what you're saying is you're looking for someone who's like a soulmate, right? Like a real true connection, somebody that you feel like you could spend the rest of your life with, even though you're 20. There's no shame in saying that the person I want is the person who really sees me, the person I could see my life being with, right? Am I reading you right?
Correct. Yeah, and
Okay.
I'll even, like, I feel like I do this thing where I'll, like, romanticize heavily, like, when I start talking to someone or, like, I hang out with someone for the first time, I start, like, imagining all of the ways that like, well, like maybe we like could start dating and like maybe this is gonna sound crazy, but like if we had a house, like what would it look like? Or like, do you think like maybe he would be a good dad? And I'll like start like heavily romanticizing all these ideas in my mind for like people that I just met. Like,
Okay,
which is
I'm gonna let Dr. Chez deal with that, the romanticizing the partner. But what I want to ask you, I want you to write this down. I want you to you may not be able to do it now. You might be able to give me one or two answers, but I want you to objectively, not situationally, not thinking about any particular person. What does building a strong relationship with someone look like? How does that happen? If you don't know, you can read a book about it. But if you do know, and I think we all have some sort of internal knowing, what does that look like? How does that happen? Can you give me any answers now? And you don't have to. I'm just saying I want that to be your exercise because you are looking subjectively at this person and you're not thinking objectively. Objectively, the person that you want to sweep you off your feet and buy you a ticket to go to a certain place is a person that you have a real relationship with, a person that has shown caring for you, the person who's flying you off to Paris because you've been together for 4 years and you know them backward and forward and they know you, and that's romantic. But instead, you're taking the gummy bear version. Do you know what I'm saying? So I want you to write to yourself objectively, these are the things that make a real connection between two people. Read Brene Brown if you need to. Listen to our podcast. We will talk about different things, what's healthy, what's unhealthy. But I think it's important to stop putting the cart before the horse, as my mother used to say. Like, don't look at the ticket to go to see a guy you've never met in a state you don't know where you're completely unsafe as the trip to Paris from the guy you've been dating for 4 years who loves you and who's surprising you to, for a romantic weekend. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't conflate those two things because they're not the same. One puts you in a dangerous position and makes you think all sorts of things in advance of that person actually proving themselves. So write the objective and do not try not to make it subjective. I'm going to let Dr. Chez talk about the romanticizing of these things, but then we want to go to Beth to ask her what it is that she's really searching for.
Okay, here's where it's about to get really real, you guys. Bonnie, the romanticizing thing, we all do it. So I'm not just speaking to you. We all do that. We all have this vision that we have. Again, it's the same exact thing. Actually, it's just we're giving that the fairy tale Disney, okay, we can go there, but it's actually just as damaging. Having that vision of, oh, it's supposed to be this, the house and the kids and the dog and the whatever, future tripping is actually really, really, really dangerous because you're doing the exact same thing that you did when you said okay to the plane ticket. You're saying, okay, in the future, my dreams might come true. And the reality is, from what I know, my years of either experience or as a therapist, is that there is no fairy tale future. The only thing that we can say with certainty is how things are right here, right now, right? And if we put that on another person, if we put that, again, it's externalizing. If we put our happiness on an external, I ask every single client I ever meet with, I ask them to fill out this little survey. And one of the questions is, I have thousands of these answers. One of the questions is, I'll be happy when. And I'd love to ask, actually, all three of you that question. I'll be happy when.
for me, I'll be happy when, or are you speaking like in terms of seeking connections and relationships?
Anything. I'll be happy when.
For me
Finish the sentence.
personally, I'll be happy when someone shows effort and shows that they care. Like they're putting in the work that actually shows that this is going to be worth something.
Okay. Bonnie?
I feel like this question, and I don't know why, but I feel like it almost feels like a hard question for me. Like, I'll be happy when, and it's like, I don't know, which I don't know if that's like an okay answer, but like, I really like, I don't know.
Yes.
Like, I, you know?
Yes. Okay. it's a trick question because there is no "I'll be happy when," and we do that to ourselves. It's a setup for ourselves. I have women who say, "I'll be happy when my kids are happy." So we're putting this external thing on our happiness, and you're absolutely right, Bonnie. It is an "I don't know." I'll be happy when I'm happy, which could be right
Mhm.
this second, just because I'm sitting in happiness for some reason, the sun's out or whatever the reason is. But if it comes from an internal locus of control versus this outside wannabe thing, and we all do that. So it takes so much reprogramming for that of the only I'll be happy is when I'm happy, which could be right this second. So I say that because when you're talking about dangerous stuff, that really is dangerous because it's never going to be fulfilled. And it's part of the human condition that we do that we put this goal oriented stuff on everything. And when we do it in relationships, it's a setup for a disaster because expectations that breeds an expectation in our mind. And then expectations lead to letdown because nobody can possibly fulfill our full expectation, right? We can only do that. So what I loved about what you said, Beth, is I'll be happy when someone shows effort or shows that they care. So in therapy, what I would do with that is say, Beth, how do you show up for yourself with effort and show yourself that you care? Let's turn everything back within. How do you do that? How do you show up for yourself by caring for yourself and putting effort in for yourself? That would be the therapeutic answer. You don't,
Mhm.
I mean, question. You don't have to answer that right now, but that would be really worthy to journal about because when we shift that focus to internal, then we are shifting the whole landscape of this outside thing satisfying us. And believe me, I do it every second of the day. I'm catching myself constantly. It's a constant game of catch with this. But if we put it back on, how am I caring for myself? How am I putting effort in for myself? I guarantee you that your conscious effort in that direction is not so much. Is that true?
Yeah, no, that does resonate with me, and it actually really got me thinking, like, what do I need to do for myself first, you know?
Yes. Okay, answer that question. How do you show up for yourself with effort and care? How do you care for yourself?
I think recently what I've been trying to do is speak up for myself more because that's something that I really struggle with. I can be really passive aggressive and just not say what I'm fully thinking just because in the past I've had experiences where I've just been shot down and it really just kills me. So I
Right.
think by saying no to things when I just am not feeling up to it and just trying to put myself first respectfully.
You know what? Because you asked that and that's how you answered that question, that's what you most need. That's what you
Mm,
most need for yourself is to come back to caring for yourself and how you know you need to do that. We know ourselves better than anybody. I couldn't tell you what you need. Like you know.
right.
So you doing that more and more and more and catching yourself, giving yourself the high five, the hoorah, I did it, I'm doing it. That's exactly what's going to get you to that place of not needing the outside thing and then magically, and it's always funny to me when this happens, but magically then the right people show up in your world because
Mhm.
you're sharing that energy. And so who does respect your voice is going to show up because you're doing it.
Yeah. That's yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think that's really, really powerful. Really powerful. I love that exercise. I'm so glad that you went all the way through that, Chez, to not only say, do the first part, but to actually do the second part. What is it? And how do you show up for yourself? I love that. So, Beth, can you tell us? I know you were just talking, but I would like to hear you also say, what is it? I want you to vocalize what is it you're actually looking for? What is it you actually want as far as relationships go? And that doesn't
So
mean it's a relationship tomorrow. I'm not
right.
saying like you're looking for a relationship. I'm just saying when you have your next connection, I'm not even going to ever give you encounter. When you have your next connection, what is it you want it to be like?
So kind of circling back to my situation that I was in with that guy, what really kept me coming back to him was that he was the first person who actually like he made time for me, like regardless of how he necessarily treated me, he did make time for me and he did give me attention. And I think that's what just keep yes, that's what drew him to me because every other person I've been with in the past, like it kind of just never got very far. So I think speaking objectively, what I am looking for is someone now, what you were saying earlier was that not everyone can't give you everything that you need, right? But something that's important to me is I think having a similar love language is like that's me personally, like that's what I would need. I'm very like a touchy person and like I like to talk and I just want to know like how you're doing and I need that type of energy back. I just would like someone to give me what I put out. You know, I just like to see the effort. I like to see that
Um,
you care. I just like to see that you care. Like that's what I am looking for. I'm just looking for
can I just say, I think you're still asking for crumbs. I don't think you're asking for the whole cake, to be
you know
honest.
what? You're probably right. You're probably right.
Don't settle
Maybe
for
I
the
don't even know
crumbs.
what I want.
Maybe you
That's
Maybe
don't.
I
Maybe
don't even
that
know.
is maybe
so
that is a realization that you're not ready for any
Mhm.
kind of a relationship, right? If you don't know, if you can't articulate those things, and I'm just going to say it, like if it's for sexual needs, there are many ways to handle sexual needs. So I'm going to take that off the table and I'm just going to say if you can't articulate what it is you need, then maybe you're not ready for a relationship and you have to know yourself better. You have to love yourself. You have to know who you are and then you will be able to say what it is you want to bring into your life. Because
Mhm.
whether we like it or not, every person that we're with walks into our life and they walk in with I think Dr. Chez put something up on our Instagram one time about like I have to be careful of who I let into my soul, like with the shoes that they're wearing. Are
the
they dirty shoes?
Gandhi quote. Yeah,
Yeah, like
don't walk in
every
my mind with your dirty feet.
well,
Yeah.
and to that point is every person that we let into our body, like literally physically our body, we're letting them in. But they're not
Mhm.
just coming into our bodies, they're coming into our brains, into our psyche, into everything. If they're walking in with dirty shoes, you are going to feel the repercussions.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you need to know what it is you want before you allow someone into your life, into your body, into your psyche, right? And you should be able to articulate that because when you speak it out loud, you are drawing that attention to you. You are drawing that person to you. If you don't have a clear vision of who that person is, you're going to settle for any riffraff, dirty shoed person that comes along, you
And
know?
I love all that. I'm sure you guys have heard, law of attraction type stuff, but
Yeah.
it's physics too. Like attracts like. So if you are this aspirational self that you are keeping your energy and your voice and everything about you that you want, then that does attract that. So that's part of, I'm sure, what you're saying, Steph, or I know that's what you're saying in a lot of ways. I want to read the Brene Brown quote again from Atlas of the Heart because I feel like this is so good. And where she doesn't go as much that I am more wanting you guys to be directed, Bonnie and Beth, and all four of us here as we're elevating ourselves, is to look at that inwardly too, not just to look at the energy with another, but the energy within my soul. Am I doing this? So here's how she defines connection. She says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. So, my big kind of soapbox is, are we seeing, hearing, and valuing ourselves? Are we giving to ourselves without judgment? That's like a hell to the no. We judge ourselves constantly. I've been judging my hair for the last hour because it looks like hell, but that's okay. But anyway, and do we derive sustenance and strength from ourselves? Or do we feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this from this outside thing, right? Whether it's my hair or another person. So I want us really to look at that, feeling seen, heard, and valued within and without judgment of ourselves. Man, that's a hard one. And do I derive sustenance and strength from myself? That's that trick question of I'll be happy when. I want us to really remember that today, because the sustenance and strength is not an outside thing. It's got to come here. And it's hard, hard, hard. You guys are so young to be even going down this road talking about it, because I certainly wasn't at your age. But this is big. If you do that, then you're really clear about what you want and what you attract and what comes to you. And it just is naturally there. There's no question, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
How
Yeah,
about you?
it reminds me of that quote that's like, in order to love someone else, you have to love yourself first.
Mhm.
Like, you
Yes.
can't seek the things that you want for yourself. Like, you can't seek that in another person.
Exactly. And it sounds so corny and simple, but I know it to be truth. I really, really do. And so the more that we keep that in the forefront, the more that you share that kind of stuff with your friends, you know, I think the more that we'll support each other as women with having that. This recent thing with P. Diddy came out, and all our hearts, I'm sure, were like, oh my God, this poor woman, why did she stay with that? And trying to process that whole thing of being beaten up, and there's many reasons that people do that. But I think that when you start at your age with this whole internal thing of nothing outside of me is going to define who I am, nothing outside of me is going to tell me I'm okay or not okay. I decide that. You are way ahead of the game if you get there.
Can I go back to, I just want to say, Beth, your comment about I just want somebody. I think if you are using the term just when you're talking about what it is you want, that should be a little like light bulb in your head. And Dr. Chez, maybe you agree or disagree, but I think that's a light bulb in your head, because when you know what you want, it's not just, I want
Mhm.
this. That is so strong. You have to come into, think about, I'm just going to give you the two differences. I just want somebody to be nice to me. I want somebody who's nice to me. I want somebody who builds me up. I want somebody who sees that when I become better, they also become better. These are
Mhm.
strong statements, not the just. I keep saying that even to my daughter about friendships, because I think we have to look at it in all aspects of our life, right? I don't just want anything, just are the crumbs. You don't deserve the crumbs. You deserve the full cake. And I just want to say this. This is really important, and it is woo woo. Dr. Shaz and I are probably going to get more woo woo as this show goes along. But here's the truth, the universe, there's no lack of abundance out there. For you to have a man, a partner, male, female, I don't care, for you to have a partner who loves you, who respects you, who shows you your dignity, who builds you up when you're knocking yourself down, that's not an impossibility, but you have to call it to yourself. I do this with my kids. I say, I am Stephanie Boye, and I am going or I have written a bestseller book. I am, and I use my name and I use what it is that I am going to have in the way that I already have it. I have written a bestseller. My name is Stephanie Boye, and I have written a bestseller. And all day I will say that my name is Stephanie Boye, and I have.
Myth.
I connect, right. But I connect myself, my name specifically, to what it is that I want, that I know I deserve. And the universe hears that. It sounds freaking weird, I know, and woo woo, and I don't care, but it's very true. And that's why I want you to have strong statements. I don't want the just, I don't want the crumbs for you. I want you to tell me what cake you want. What is your cake? So that's really important to me. And I'm sorry, I'll let anybody respond to that, but then I have a really important other thing I have to go to. So anyone have a response?
I was just gonna say that that really resonates me. You have to. I think that I'm just someone who is really indecisive, and obviously I don't know everything that I want, but by saying these affirmations and putting it out into the universe, it definitely makes you more secure in your ideas and your thoughts and what you need and what you want, instead of just thinking like, oh, well, maybe I want this. Like, no, I want this.
Yes, and connect your name. I am Beth. I am Bonnie so and so, and I am going to have the most amazing relationship where we are totally, you know, you're not always going to be perfectly aligned with people, but we are going to make each other better people. We are going to have each other's backs. We are going to actually treat each other with respect and dignity. Say it, connect it to your name every day.
I have a question for Beth or Bonnie. It can be either of you. Beth, I'm going to call you out for a second. Saw your room at the beginning of the show. It's a beautiful room with like this wall with really cool things. Like I wanted to read all of it. Whenever anybody has walls like that or tattoos or whatever, I always want to know what those say because they say a lot. Anyway, I asked you about one of the things on your wall, and it said, no rain, no flowers. Now, I think you're starting to get to know me. I don't like that. I actually want you to take that down and I want a better one.
No.
But if you were to change that to a more empowered, because what that says to me is can't control the rain, got the rain, but okay, let's look on the bright side. At least there'll maybe be flowers, there'll be a little flood or rain, but maybe there'll be flowers. That's very a disempowering statement. So, and keep it up because it is good. I'm not saying it's bad. But if you were to change that, either of you, to something more empowered, as Stephanie is saying, with your name, like the I, what would that be about flowers? You are the flowers. So what is the empowered statement? Forget the freaking rain. What is the empowered statement about you as a flower? This is
Oh, I
tough.
don't.
This is
This is
tough.
a tough question.
Bonnie, chime in. Steph, chime in.
Help me
Anybody?
out, Bonnie. Help me out.
I feel like it's more of like I control my environment
Mhm.
and I can grow without the influence of others. Like more of like I am sure enough of
True.
myself to where I can be happy and like as a flower, like I can grow and blossom without the help of someone else.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No, I like that,
Take off
Bonnie. That
all the
resonated. Thank
disclaimers, take
you.
off all the without the help. How about just I grow and blossom? That's enough.
Period. That
Period.
is.
I grow and blossom. That's the empowered. That's what Steph is talking about. You put it out there and she's talking like goals, which is beautiful because we all have those too. But just with this one, it's like I grow and blossom. I don't even have to mention the rain because I'm not going there. I grow, I blossom. I love that. Great job. Okay, back to you, Steph.
Okay, so there's a thing that I talked about in one of our podcasts. I don't know that it's aired yet, but I think it's really important to think about because I want to talk about the fact that it is dangerous, Bonnie, flying to another state. There was a TED talk by, oh no, a TED talk by Ren Gavrieli. And what I loved about it was he told the story of this man who came up to him. He's an Israeli guy who talks about he's like anti-porn. But anyway, he talked about this dad who came up and he said, he lets his daughter have her boyfriend stay over, which for most families, that's kind of like, that's a terrible idea. Most Americans can't wrap their heads around letting their children be in the house with their boyfriend, obviously at a certain age, but stay in the same room. And he said, "Do you know why I do that?" He said, "I do that because my daughter is in her queendom and she knows things won't happen to her in her queendom. And when she's not in her queendom, she is more at risk of something happening to her." And I think about that all the time because everybody knows, well, especially our generation, if you watched Oprah, if you get kidnapped and taken from the first location to a second location, you are way more at danger because you have put yourself that you are now in the territory of the other person and you are less empowered. So I want every young person to hear that. If you are going to if you are going to get together with a guy, bring him back to your place. Your friends are there, your roommates are there. You have a much greater chance of protecting yourself when there are people around you. So that is dangerous. And I say that because you could be my daughter and I would want someone to say that to her. So that said, when we are in a relationship, when we are going for these relationships, and this is what I said, you are going for the crumbs and you're looking for the romanticized idea of what this guy is, right? You are inverting and this is what I was trying to get to earlier, an intimacy pyramid. So when we have real connection with people, it is often and historically built on the experiences we have with another person. So we have different layers of intimacy. There's experiential intimacy. You get to know somebody when you're in class with them, right? And they're your partner on a project or whatever. You get to know certain aspects of them. You get to know something about a person when you go to church together, whether you're religious or not, if you go to something that you're impassioned about, if you go to a protest or whatever, that's sort of spiritual in a way that shows you the character of the person. That creates a level of intimacy. Sometimes people have shared trauma together. They've both lost a parent or their parents have gone through a divorce. And that's sort of a more emotional intimacy that some people can build, right? When we look at these strong relationships that we are aspiring to, and I believe that's what we're saying, they are built on levels of intimacy, the apex of which is sexual intimacy, physical intimacy. But when we start with physical intimacy, we start the pyramids like this. Instead of the pyramid being like this, oh, we're in class together. Oh, we've gone to church together. Oh, we had some trauma. The tornado went through our town. Oh, all of these things are building up to this level where you know a person because you've seen them on these intimate levels. But when you flip it and you have sex first, it's very hard to build out a triangle that way. That's when you're on the crumbs. Sex is actually the crumbs when you start that way and you build up here. When you build the proper way, it's the cake and it's the icing on the cake. But the other way, you're starting with the crumbs and you're trying to make a cake. It's very hard. So I just want to leave that in your mind because I think you two girls are amazing. The fact that you want to be on this show, the fact that you want to talk to us, the fact that you want to share your stories and you're willing to be vulnerable, it says a lot about your character. And you deserve the cake and not the crumbs. So I just really want you to think about getting what you want requires a shift in your perception of how to attain that. And Beth, as you said, you may not know what those requirements are yet, and it's okay to be alone. You don't have to be in relationship. You can join a gym. You can find other ways to connect with people until you know what it is you want. And I can only tell you this. It's my last little soapbox bit. If you follow your joy, you will find out more about who you are and what you need. Follow the things that make you happy. Because if you put up on your Instagram the things that make you happy, I worked for Habitat for Humanity this weekend and I built a house or I did this. You are flipping the script on culture. Culture that says the only thing that makes you important is showing your ass in a bikini that goes up your crack. Your value is when you put out into the world who you are, what you value. If you put out pictures of your ass, you're going to get people who want your ass. That's just straight up. Like that is the law of attraction in another way. Use your Instagram, use your power, use your influence, no matter how small you think it is, to represent what brings you joy and what you value rather than the objectification of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I actually really like that. And that's what I've been trying to do a lot recently. Really just, post because I like to post on social media and things like that. And I just try to post like things that make me happy. Because I think a lot of people would say I'm a little bit unconventional in some ways. Like I'm not like too wacky, but you know, just putting myself out there exactly who
Not too wacky. There's another person out there who's also too wacky. You get
You
it?
know
Like,
what? Shout
Right.
out to all my wacky people. We exist.
Bring them on. Bring on the wackies.
my daughter loves taxidermy. She's 7. Like, it's weird
Wait,
as shit. And I
That's
think it's
wacky.
weird as shit. And it's
that
amazing.
is
She puts up dead animals, like,
That's wacky. Yeah.
but
Okay,
you're
I love
attracting the wacky.
yes. Steph, I love the pyramid thing. That is so helpful for people. And I love that you brought up the danger thing again because I feel like that's really important. And to close this out, I mean, well, we have more we can close out, but I wanted to ask both of you guys this idea. My theory on when we're faced with a decision, should I stay or should I go? Should I get on this plane to see this guy that there might be a potential or whatever the reasoning in your head is, right? My advice to young people, to all of us actually, hello, with any decision is to ask 3 people. Give 3 people that you trust the truth about it. I don't know this guy other than 4 conversations on the internet. Should I go there? He got me a plane ticket. What do you think? If you poll 3 people and then poll your gut, like your gut knows too, but if you poll 3 people and you're willing to really trust their feedback, that is so important. And they don't have to be your parent, but it could be your mom's best friend that you trust and that you really think would be a good person to ask these kind of things. But I think that's important that we survey a little more versus react. We're a society of fast reactors. We want everything fast. We react, we react, react. This is asking everybody to step back, take time, and respond. And the answer to this person who is buying the plane ticket could be, I'm not sure, let me think about it. That's a beautiful answer. And you really think about it and think about it in many ways because, yes, it can be incredibly dangerous. Very, very, very dangerous. Thank God Bonnie and Beth are both here. You're alive and well, but it could have gone a different way. You know, we're here to see, like we saw a hotel video of things going another way. I don't want that for anybody. Okay. That's my thing. Do you
Okay.
think that would have helped you? Would you have responded to that, Bonnie, if you had thought, well, let me ask 3 people and see? And if 3 people said no, would you have gone anyway, or would you have thought about it more?
This is something that gets me now and very much resonates me because I almost find that when I'm like making decisions like that now, I do think like if I was looking at this from the perspective of my friends and family who truly care about me, like what would they want me to do? Which is a change that I've made because honestly, and as embarrassing as it might sound, like I did ask 3 people. I told, I was like sitting there about to board the plane, my mom was literally texting me like, "Hey, you really should not be doing this." And I was kind of just like, "No, it's fine," because I almost didn't like care about myself enough to even like care what they were saying.
Right.
So, yeah, so now I very much try and like, okay, if I was thinking about this from my best friend's perspective, what would she want me to do? Because those are the people that truly care about me in the way that I like want to care about myself.
Oh my God, you're
So,
so insightful. Yes, yes, yes. This is
so
amazing. This is huge. Big growth here. What were the words? I grow and blossom.
I
There's
grow
big
and blossom.
growing and blossoming here.
I think that advice is excellent advice. Excellent, excellent advice. And you know what? Here's the thing. If you keep putting in your like list of things that you want, I want somebody who's going to fly me to romantic places. That will happen in the time it's supposed to happen, not in a conversation over the internet. You know what I mean? Or 10 conversations over the internet. I think asking people, like, if you're in a good, healthy relationship that people know about and you asked your mom the same thing, she'd be like, yeah, you should go. That's beautiful. That's romantic. And so that should be what everyone goes by. I love it. Ask 3 people and make sure you don't just ask your peer group. Try to ask one person, a teacher, a somebody.
A guy, a guy would probably be like, I don't think so. But yeah. Well, you guys are amazing. Thank you for being such honest and open guests and willing to kind of play with us in this little, self-help arena. Thank you for that. That's amazing. You guys are awesome and you will get everything you want as growing and blossoming people, for sure.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Of
Yeah,
course,
thank
our
you.
pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of 7 on Sundays.
The 7 on Sundays podcast represents the opinions of Dr. Chez Leeby and Stephanie Boye based on our experience. It also shares the stories, behaviors, and opinions of our guests that we do not necessarily condone or view as healthy. 7 on Sundays is an open forum to discuss what is happening with our listening audience. Some names and details of our guest stories have been changed to protect their anonymity. This podcast is not a substitute for mental health treatment. If you are in crisis and in need of mental health support, please call 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is free and confidential.
Join the conversation and connect with us through our website, 7onsundays.com. That's the number 7onsundays.com. We encourage everyone to do their own research. Thank you and be well.